would we be paying in to come even close to equaling? We'll never see. Well, our portion is come close to what the federal already are kicking in.
Yeah, but we're still paying for all of that. We're paying that through taxes.
You know something? We are going to pay for it all through taxes
for the rest of our lives.
We're going to pay for it if it's in New Jersey. We're going to pay for it if it's in Illinois. We're going to pay for it in Texas. We're going to pay for it wherever it goes.
And that's wrong. And Wisconsin
but we are. Wrong or not,
but Wisconsin
Matt, wrong or not, we are going to be paying for it the same way.
Right.
So we might as well get it here, because this way we get some jobs and we get some benefit for it, because we're going to be paying the same amount for it regardless.
This country's in a mess there is because of that kind of thinking. We're just take the free money and we'll be paying for it the rest of our lives. So what? So we pass the debt on to our children. Right now, every person born in the United States is $50,000 in the hole because of our national debt. This is just going to add to it.
You can talk about what everybody owes, but I would also say what you get for your portion of the debt. So don't talk to me about what do you get?
You get more debt. And hair loss, apparently, because I'm really frustrated.
You get debt when you go to college. You get debt when you get debt from everything you do.
You get national security. You get municipal services. You get representation.
I'm just talking about the federal, what the children owe the federal government when they're born.
What you get is a policeman on the block. And
that's not
what you get.
That's not federal dollars.
You get a soldier. Yes.
When I say the block, let me take that. You get a policeman in the world. Okay.
You also get a policeman on the block because federal subsidies have come and helped.
So you can talk about what is owed, but I would also say that there's a discussion there on what is gained. But let's we go back to short term versus long term, and are we going to stay in this kind of an economic environment for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Is the car going to be the best way for middle class workers to get to their jobs?
Yes.
Is that going to be
$10 a gallon for gas?
It's not $10 a gallon.
No, it isn't.
You don't know if it's going to be.
It might be 20. I don't know.
It might be nothing. They might have some technology.
Well, I know where I'm from. We pay $7 a gallon. We've been paying that for the past 20 years.
Yeah, but it takes you 20 minutes to drive across the country.
Ownership? What's the percentage of car ownership in?
Well, there's more than 88,000 people. It's 10,000 cars.
And it takes how long to get across the island?
Well, that's high tide or low tide?
Low tide.
An hour.
See, that's not bad. You don't have to drive through the water then, see?
Ray, you want to tell them where you're from originally?
Let's do a plug for the Seychelles Islands in Indian Ocean. Nothing to do with Somali pirates. Beautiful islands. 115 tropical islands, 5 degrees below the equator.
Yeah. Beautiful.
3 hours off of Kenya.
And you must be loving this weather we're having. Right?
It's very tropical here as well.
Right.
Depends how much rum you have.
I think the discussion of government spending is always going to bring into any program you bring to the table. But the question I would ask you is that what does this corridor, Chicago to Milwaukee, Milwaukee to Madison, what does it look like?
Chicago to Minneapolis.
No, you're talking like in
Ohio
5 years, 10 years
to Minneapolis.
What does it look like to move goods and services through this area? What does it look like to have middle-class families have jobs that they can get to and pay a good, sustainable wage?
So I live in Kenosha, and I'm going to take a job in Madison because I can ride the train.
If you can get there quick enough.
And then I have to get a cab or a bus to get to me where I got to go.
When I first started working for a company in Kenosha, there was a gentleman. He was living right outside of Madison, and he would commute or stay in Kenosha for a couple of days a week because the pay was such that for him, it was worth it for him to do that. When I worked at Motorola, I don't understand why people did it, but when I worked for Motorola in Libertyville, there were people coming in from, what's the town, not Gary, but right outside of Gary. Come on.
Hammond.
Yes. I had 2 guys coming from Hammond, Hammond, Indiana, every day to Motorola because the wages at Motorola was way better than anything you can make at Hammond.
Do you think the train's going to get them there? No.
The train
would not get them to where they have to go.
The point I'm making is they were moving for these jobs. They were willing to travel for these jobs. For whatever reason, they were willing to travel these jobs. How many people at the Chrysler plant still went to Belvedere?
Well, one of my neighbors
from
did.
Kenosha.
Yeah.
From Kenosha. How many
people
still went to? Because
some of them still are again.
Yeah.
Because the money was so good for them to do that. Well, they made that decision to travel that along that period of time. It's well worth it for the money.
They made it themselves. That's right.
If there was an alternative there that helps mitigate the expenses on that, a rail system, a public transportation system that's extensive, whether it be buses, whether it be rail, then all of a sudden going from Kenosha to Belvedere isn't as expensive as
You
it is
can
now.
snooze on a train. You can't snooze behind the wheel of a car. Well, you could, but it'd be deadly.
It does take a change of attitude in mind.
But
Midwesterners love
you're
their
going
cars.
from one
Oh,
fixed,
Americans love their
but
cars.
you're going from one fixed point to another. You still have to get to your job
I
from the
understand
second
that.
fixed point. And you still have to pay to park your car, and you still have to pay an extra hour or two for daycare each day
But Matt,
for
it
your
does
children.
work. It works, and in urban areas, it works. And,
If you're
and
highly populated, we're not here. Chicago is highly densely populated.
Matt,
it works. It
I had a
doesn't
lady
work
in the
here.
cab the other day. She's going to go back to Connecticut on Christmas break, and she's going to fly into LaGuardia, and her family is going to drive from Connecticut over to LaGuardia to pick her up on a Friday night. Now, anyone who knows traffic situation in that area on Friday night is crazy. As the amount of traffic that comes into New York City.
That's not Kenosha, Milwaukee, or
But the point I'm trying to
Madison.
make is there is an option there for her. She can take the train from LaGuardia to Manhattan, take a commuter train from Manhattan to Bridgeport.
And take
It's
a good
there.
chance of getting mugged somewhere
No,
along the
no,
line.
it's safe and
we
easy.
don't have that huge a population here.
But we are. If you start talking about Kenosha, you
When we
start
get
talking
there,
about
then they'll build
Milwaukee,
it.
you start talking about Racine.
We're talking about the
New
megalopolis.
York
very
City
quickly.
The beauty-
has
the
the whole
beauty-
state of Wisconsin.
The beauty
population.
about this discussion is maybe this was the same discussion a couple hundred years ago when they had the horse and buggy, and someone thought about the car.
Yeah, well,
You know, why? You know, let's say technologies will come.
And there were people back then that saying we cannot have the
car's an
automobile
individual choice.
because most Americans like their horses and their buggies, and we should not have cars and paved roads because we lack our, and that's what you guys are sounding like. The guys. who
No,
want
what
to-
I'm saying, what I'm saying is that there's room for discussion, but it
What
needs
if
to
the
be discussed
technology
and
is the
understood.
train?
But when the governor, the outgoing
it's all
governor,
technology. It's older than
runs
cars.
out of state, presents this to a foreign company
One company, too.
without being transparent, and this in many people's mind is in the back. What's going on here?
Jobs.
Let's have an open, transparent approach
You brought jobs to this.
to
You brought jobs.
high-speed
jobs.
rail. 600 jobs. There was already a company in Milwaukee doing that, an American-owned company linked up with a Japanese company, same technology. They were already in place. Why were they bypassed?
You brought more jobs. Did that Milwaukee company
While
shut
he
down?
was in Spain playing golf.
Did that Milwaukee company shut down? Did they
It's the
move?
same thing in Chicago. The owners of
Why is
Wrigley
the competition
Field
is good
wants
when you
to
guys tell me
wants
that?
to approach. They approach
Why is the
it publicly.
competition good when you guys tell me that public schools need competition through vouchers, but yet competition is not good on a free market enterprise? So if we have one train maker in Milwaukee, he should be protected. Two train makers by the Republicans'
approach
right-wing
should have been,
business.
Anthony, that it should have been transparent.
Competition is
It did
always
not
good. You tell
take
me
the
competition is
governor
good.
to go to
There was
Spain,
no competition.
go to
in a
Spain
train
and
selection.
decide on a small
So are we a
backroom
protectionist?
committee what was going to
No.
happen
Are
for
we supposed to
Wisconsin.
protect Wisconsin
Doyle
producers?
decided-
Are we supposed to encourage competition
But there
and
was no
thus
competition.
more jobs?
There was
And this is
no
why the
open
people are
bidding.
up to here with this kind of approach.
There was no
There's
open
nothing
bidding.
wrong with trains, but let's understand it fully on the table.
All I know.
What are we?
for
What's
sure-
the cost for us?
Let's look at the empirical evidence. We can talk about the theory, we can talk about the politics, but let's look at the empirical.
It's going to affect my tax dollars, and I don't want any more taxes.
Oh, I understand.
Than I have right now.
Don't tax you. Don't
Especially
tax me.
with
Don't
the
tax.
city
Let's
doing
tax the man behind the
3%,
tree.
the county's doing 2%.
Let me take
What
it
I'm
to-
talking about. Let's
School
look at
board,
actual.
8%.
Let's take it to a
actual fact.
microcosm. Let's take it to a microcosm. We lost a Walmart in our district. Matt is a resident of the same district.
Well,
I am.
that was a good thing where they were going to put
And
it.
we lost a Walmart in our district, right? So now the Walmart is 6 miles away, 4 miles away. I have a population that used to walk to Walmart, walk
yeah.
to Kmart, and could balance their dollar between Walmart and Kmart and get the best value for their dollar. Now, that option is no longer there for them. They cannot get to Walmart because there is no public transportation.
Well,
to
there
Walmart.
is, but nobody wants to be.
There's no public transportation out there.
They can rent a bus out there. They don't want to deal
We don't
with
run a
it.
bus out there.
You
No,
can't.
Kenosha City Transit does not run buses in the summer.
Well, that's because we're not. We got it. We have.
I'm not going to take
summers.
Kenosha. I'm not going to take Kenosha tax dollars and move business from Kenosha to Summers.
That's Kenosha. That's federal tax dollars.
well, even so.
That's all federally subsidized. All
That's
the
why
20%.
policemen on every block.
20% of it is 20% of it is Kenosha tax dollars. Now, if I was part of a regional transportation authority, okay,
Appointed?
Okay, if
You
I
don't
was
need
part of
a-
a regional transportation authority and we talked about the regional needs as opposed to the local municipality needs, then I would tell you, hey, running bus service to Summers is a good idea because it's part of a interconnected regional transportation.
But you're
and
spending-
Summers is paying for that.
You're
And Summers is
spending
paying for that service with their tax dollars, as
spending
is
Kenosha
Kenosha,
tax
as is
dollars,
Pleasant Prairie,
as
as is
is
Salem,
Racine.
as is
But you're
Racine,
spending
etc.
Kenosha tax dollars out in Summers.
You can't get from here to Racine on public transportation. That's
And you
crazy.
have to create a whole new board.
You can't get to the next town on
but
public transportation.
You have to create a whole other layer of government just to drive across
You
across
don't
the
have
Summers.
to create another layer of government. It's all the ingredients
can't
are on
work
the
that
table.
out without
all the
doing that.
ingredients are on the table. You just have to put it together.
It's with the town board getting together with the city of Kenosha's common council. Hey, let's work something out to get the buses out there so people can shop. Very simple. You don't have to create a regional transit authority to do that or get permission from somebody. The mayor
I
and the
attended
head
a
of the
meeting-
board out there can get together, can work out.
I attended a meeting of
You complicate
Western
things.
County officials, or all county officials that Jim Cruiser put together, county exec, and they talked about, oh well, we didn't want a regional transportation authority that had no representation or wasn't a voting body. You know what? If that is your issue, if you had the problem that it wasn't a voting body, then let's talk about making it an
voting body.
elected position. But the bottom line is,
We don't need another layer.
bottom line is, you cannot get from Kenosha to Racine by public transportation. The market is now providing.
There's a bus that goes up there
No, there
every.
isn't.
Yes, there is.
It is not public transportation. It's private transportation.
Does it work? Is
The
it
market
cheap?
has provided a solution, but it's
Is
not a
it
solution
cheap?
that's working.
Why isn't it working? It's been there forever.
Hasn't been there forever.
Well, I remember taking a bus there when the North Shore shut down. We had to take a bus to Racine to go to the eye doctor, and it was there then. I could have 8, 9, 10 years old.
You talk
It's
about Greyhound, Wisconsin,
just a
Culture
bus.
Badger.
Yeah, doesn't matter. A bus was going there. They've always found a way to keep that going all these years.
But that's private transportation.
So what?
They have no obligation to continue that service.
But they're doing.
They can decide to move that service or remove that service at any time.
So if you
There's
set
no
up
obligation.
a government
So
transportation,
what we're hearing from Anthony is that
Government's
let the
a
government
solution.
run it.
yeah, we'll set up a
What I'm
regional
saying is,
transportation board
when
with a
government is
taxing
involved
authority.
in transportation, it has a different reason to be involved in transportation. Just
Yeah,
like when
it keeps-
just like when the local government is involved in real estate. When local government is involved in real estate, it's not
They
about
mess it
buying.
up.
It's not about buying and selling houses and making money. It's about neighborhood stabilization. It's about rebuilding neighborhoods. It's about a long-term goal. When you talk about private transportation is hitting a very short-term need. When you're talking about public transportation, then you're talking about an understanding of where your jobs are, where your economic base is, and how to bring the people to that
I don't
economic
know,
base.
the private bus systems in the United States have survived for how many years? Because there's a need.
Well, there's a need for buses and there's a need for trains. I'm going to tell you something that we're going to talk about. We shall deal with this empirically, facts on the ground, reality. In places where they put these high-speed lines, such as from Charlotte to I think Raleigh, North Carolina, they've done it.
Look at the population density.
It's not any more dense than we are here, and the thing is, the whole strip along that train line blossomed
But
economically.
it's on high-speed rail, then.
It's regardless of whether you call it a high speed
There's
or
a
train.
difference.
Yes, I understand, but it will be. But where they put the train line, the whole area just blossomed economically. Businesses moved there. The housing market, increased. The whole area was just boomed economically right along that train line.
Well, then you can't call it high-speed rail. And if
You
it's
can call it whatever you want.
sure you can, but
But the point of it is where the train lines went, and you look at historically where there are communication hubs, the population, business, economic activity grows. So, I think to cut any transportation hub, any transportation activity, particularly if the federal government is going to pay for it,
But
is
who's the
very
federal
short-sighted.
government? We are.
Yeah, I know.
It's our tax dollars.
And we're
again.
going to pay that same every dime of it, whether we get it here or elsewhere.
The system has to change because we can't keep spending
Maybe
money
so,
like this.
maybe so.
And if
But
they
in the
continue-
meantime, the system isn't changing now. Either we get the money, or Texas gets the money, or Illinois gets the money. But we're still going to be paying for it. We're not going to get out of paying for it every last cent, except that we're going to be paying so that Illinois can have it.
Well,
instead
you
of
know
us.
what? Illinois needs